Good evening. I'm Councillor Jeff Brooks, the leader of West Berkshire Council, and welcome to today's executive meeting. Can everyone present in the chamber make sure you've switched your mobile phones to silent and turn the sound off on your tablets or laptops? The meeting is being live streamed via YouTube, so members of the public are able to follow proceedings. Before we start this evening's meeting, I would like to take the opportunity to remind members that we are subject to the Council's Code of Conduct, which requires us to uphold certain standards, including, importantly, respect. Members across the chamber may not always agree with one another, but I would ask that in our disagreements, we endeavour to always be respectful of others' views. I would also like to ask that members of the public attending this meeting do not interrupt or speak outside of your designated speaking slots. And if you're in the chamber and there aren't any yet, please refrain from approaching councillors unless you're invited to do so. So we start with apologies, please. Please, Sadie.
Councillors Vicky Poole and Tony Vickers.
Thank you. And we go on with the minutes on pages 7 to 12. And I'm looking at the executive members here. Are you willing to accept the previous minutes as an accurate record of the meeting held on the 25th of September? I'm happy to propose. I'd like to have a seconder. That's Heather Codling. And all those in favour by a show of hands. Thank you very much indeed. Have we had any declarations of interest?
Apologies, no declarations of interest, sorry, no.
And none in the chamber in the meeting itself. Thank you. So before I go to public questions, and your timing is immaculate, Mr. Pike, Councillor Pike from Thatcham, I want to talk to members about the introduction of a members' dashboard. There's a new members' dashboard using data from our highways and countryside fault reporting system, which is known as WDM, to show all the problems the council teams are working on in your ward. So as people put a report of problem on our website, we now have brought to members the ability to interrogate that. Using that report of problem page on the West Berks website, residents tell us about problems they've found. They use a map to locate them accurately, as you know. There are over 25 categories of fault that can be reported, including potholes, issues with trees, hedges, footpaths, rights of way. All faults reported in this way are triaged by the appropriate team, often by a physical inspection, and either assigned to be fixed or marked as no further action. The members' dashboard provides a window onto this data and allows you to access the data from your laptop or your West Berkshire Council mobile phone if you have one. The first three dashboard screens focus on the most reported faults. They're grouped into related areas, roads, trees and footpaths. Each of these three screens is further split into potholes and road defects, trees and hedges, footpaths and public rights of way. The data is categorised according to the triage process above, focusing on quantities and time taken to resolution. There is a fault finder which allows you to search on specific faults, filter by ward, filter by type, or an inquiry reference number. Now, this I think will be a great boon to members to go in and look at what's going on in their ward. There's a reported problem on a pothole. It's come in 6 times in the last 2 or 3 days. We as members might want to go and see what that's all about. So I'm asking members on both sides, and we will be sending this, and I'm talking to David and Ross as opposition leaders and minority group leader. If you could just make sure your members are aware of this. Because what I'm trying to do is see how well this is received, get some user acceptance testing a little bit, although some of that's been going on. And then it would be good if we could give it to the parishes, so the parish clerks can drill in to what's going on in their area. So it's the start of a journey of more management information at your fingertips. Hope that's of value and interest. And I think, Sadie, it won't be you, but just remind Melanie and Rachel to send it out again to members, please. Then I have another statement more pertinent to this evening. Before we come to public questions, because it puts some of those public questions in a little bit of context and starts to respond to the concerns that some of those public questions relate to. So members, residents, news this last week will have informed people that the council budget remains under pressure, with a large movement in our forecast overspend on this year's budget predicted at the end of our Q2. Tonight, Ian Cottingham, our finance portfolio holder, Heather Codling, our children and education portfolio holder, and Patrick Clark, our adult social care portfolio holder, will make statements when I introduce the item on the performance report to give assurance to our staff and our residents that we have controls in place and are adding significant further controls in order to manage our finances. I make this statement ahead of the public questions, which quite rightly ask us about the financial position. There are statements in those questions that speak in absolutes. I state here that we are not staring bankruptcy in the face. We have the reserves to withstand the overspend that is forecast. And it is exactly that, a forecast on which we will be bearing down and looking to reduce substantially. It is a forecast at the half year. Questions from the public that begin with statements about the financial illiteracy of the council are unhelpful and do nothing to assist. I respect all questions, but insulting statements do not help. I am grateful for challenging questions and the opportunity to answer and address the issue. But I do feel that questions should be courteous and not insulting. And I will be looking at ruling out questions if I believe them to be making unnecessary and insulting statements. So I say to the public, please be courteous in your questions. We will give fulsome answers. Residents know that all government finances are under severe pressure, and councillors particularly so. Only today, we read that Leicester City Council are forecasting an overspend on their budget of £90 million. I believe that's over their medium term. Very largely because of the demand-led services in adult social care and children and family services. You will hear later about the demand in these areas here in West Berkshire, and it is of course in the report. Growing demand and demand beyond what was budgeted because we are experiencing significant increasing trends in these areas, not just on demand, but in unit cost. We are not alone in this, and there are a growing number of councillors asking government for extra financial support. What we will do this evening is explain how we will balance the budget going forward, how we will be utilising third parties to help us with savings challenges, and how we will develop a plan which will be made public to move beyond needing government financial support in the next 3 to 4 years. That is our commitment to our residents, all our members and our staff. And I think that puts a bit of context before I move into public questions. So what I have now, a number of questions from the public, some of those from public that are in attendance and some of those that are online. The question will appear on screen and will be answered by the relevant portfolio holder. You'll then be given the opportunity to ask a supplementary question. Please remember that this must clarify the response provided, respond to the response provided and the subject matter of the question, and not introduce any new business or go off sort of tangentially. And we have a number of questions tonight, A to M, so 13. We start with Councillor Mr. Simon Pike. Question A to Councillor Denise Gaines. If you want to come forward to the podium, the lectern, because of your supplementary, you don't have to say anything now. Denise will launch into the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pike. and for your question. We recognise that residents and the parishes and town councils have an extremely keen interest in the development of the master plan supplementary planning document. This is totally understandable. I appreciate the importance of this stage of the development, and I am personally involved in the process. Whilst community engagement has not yet begun, as we originally anticipated for the autumn, I want to reassure you and residents that the preparatory work for both the SPD and the consultation process is actively underway. Officers are progressing key elements, and in recent discussions, the consortium of landowners reaffirmed their commitment to working collaboratively with us to produce the SPD. We understand that residents are eager to see progress. However, it's important that the council take the necessary time to carefully develop the project plan and ensure that the right resources are in place. This will help us deliver a process that leads to the best possible outcome for the community. It's important to us that we undertake appropriate engagement, and that we produce a quality master plan that we're all supportive of. As the consultation process has yet to begin, as we arranged, I've asked for a further meeting, similar to the meeting in July, to take place with the town and parish councils to update them on the progress to date. I'm planning on this for the end of the month, and information on that will follow. Do you have a supplementary?
So thank you very much for that update, and particularly for that meeting, which I look forward to. Yes, I do have a supplementary. So policy SP14 calls for studies on healthcare, education provision, landscape and visual impact, and transport and travel. It also requires development proposals to be supported by a number of strategies, assessment and plans. Preliminary work on those may be needed for the master plan to ensure that the SPD is capable of delivering their objectives. So my question is, when do you envisage that those studies will be completed, and will the period of collaboration and public engagement enable residents and stakeholders to comment on those once they're available? Thank you.
My short answer to the second part would be yes, but if I just expand on the first bit, yes, you're correct that SP14 does give a clear steer on what is required for the SPD. And I welcome that. That gives us the bones to build on, because that's what we've got to start with. We have already started looking at these areas in a very high level way. So we've looked at education and travel, etc., in a very high level. But we will be keen to listen to both parish, town and residents about the specifics in those areas. So, yeah, I mean, but basically, we've got a firm picture of the plan performance agreement going forward. And what we've got to do now is actually put the flesh, if you like, on the bones.
So thank you on behalf of residents of Thatcham. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pike, Councillor Pike. Next question is from Mr. Ben Holden Crowther. I'm hoping he is in the...
Apologies, Leader, he's not present.
He's not present, then there will be a written answer, unless he rushes in later and we have time to come back to that question. The question C then is Mr. Allen to the portfolio holder for Environment and Highways. Is Mr. Allen in the waiting room? Then your question is now going to be answered, Mr. Allen. You should stand by for your supplementary. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Allen. We're committed to continuing to support residents who have genuine needs as part of our recent change to free weekly general waste collections. Our range of support measures include separate medical waste collections, assisted collections for residents who are less able to present their bins at the curbside, nappy reuse incentive schemes for new parents, and unlimited recycling container requests. We've also been providing additional black bin capacity for selected households who meet the assessment criteria, but obviously I appreciate every case can be different. To specifically address your query, we've received over 2,000 applications for extra capacity or second bins, with over 620 approved requests in the first 10 months of the year. And this compares to a total of 564 applications received for the whole of last year. Alongside this, we've also approved an extra 132 assisted collection requests to support residents that need it the most. Do you have a supplementary question?
No, I don't, Councillor Rowley. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I move to question D. Is Mr. Goatley in the room?
He's just joining as a panellist.
He's just joining now. Okay, then we can take his question. This is to the portfolio holder for finance resources, Ian.
Many thanks, Mr. Goatley, for your question. I would like to reassure you as a resident and all residents of West Berkshire that we are not facing bankruptcy. However, we do face significant financial pressure, and we are responding to this financial pressure via a number of actions to alleviate cost, which I'll describe later on this evening. I do not believe we are frivolously spending money. Do you have a follow-up question, Mr. Goatley?
Mr. Radbourne, is he,
Mr. Goatley is present and in the room and should be able to speak.
are you confident you could hear him?
Can you hear me?
And now,
Mr. Goatley, we can hear you now. Do you want to place your supplementary, please?
Well, thank you very much for that answer. I did hear it. Unfortunately, I'm a couple of thousand miles away from you, so the internet's a bit rubbish. It just appears that the spending is going on without really taking too much notice of things. And so what can you tell me, and I might be jumping the gun for it, but to convince me that the finances are in good order, because everybody seems to be telling me they're not.
It's a fair question, and I mean, you'll hear a lot more, Mr. Goatley, in the debate on the performance report, but back to Councillor.
Yeah, so Mr. Goatley, thank you for your follow-up question. As I said there in the original answer, we are introducing additional internal controls with regarding finance spend, which I will come to later on within the report. So rather than repeating ourselves, I think it's probably, as I say, better for me to actually give that detail later on this evening.
Thank you for that. I'm on to question E, which is Garvey, to the portfolio of finance and resources, Ian Cottingham.
Good evening, Mr. Garvey. Thank you very much for your question. No, the financial pressure faced by West Berkshire Council and other councils up and down the country is not down to the annual budget setting process. We all face significant financial pressure in relation to providing social care to the most vulnerable members of society. Later this evening, we will be discussing a report that rates our children's services as good. Do you have a follow-up question, Mr. Garvey?
I do. I guess I was told at full council that numerous policy decisions were not gone ahead with because the council had decided to listen to the public in the form of petitions, consultations, and everything else. It's a bit lengthy. I'm trying to figure out how I can shorten it up. But isn't it the case that not being able to execute planned financial efficiencies has resulted in the council not being able to make those savings?
Back to you, Ian.
So that's quite a detailed answer to your question. Yes, for any budgetary setting process, there are a list of savings which are contained within the report, and there is a success rate with those. We're doing our very best to deliver those savings. However, it's just the nature of those projects that not all of them will be delivered on time within the timescales which we deliver that. So a good illustration is that we had a projected saving regarding the NRS contract. They went bust. That was from TVI. So not everything which we believe will happen when we set the budget back in February earlier this year through other circumstances will be delivered. So a bit of a complicated answer to your question is, we don't live in a perfect world.
Mr. Garvey, also, thank you. You mentioned savings we hadn't taken after consultation. You might have been thinking of the resource centres. Clearly, we carried forward straight away a £469,000 pressure. But Councillor Clark would talk more about the adult social care situation later. And you have other questions to come, Mr. Garvey, so we'll pick those up later. Thank you. Question F is Mr. Allen again to Stuart Gawley for Environment and Highways, please.
Yes, thank you for the question, Mr. Allen. We've not seen a significant change in fly tipping rates since moving to the free weekly black bin collections last month. We will obviously, however, continue to monitor, measure and provide an update to all stakeholders towards the end of this year. The waste team will also present to the Council's Scrutiny Commission in spring 2026 about the initial outcomes of this change, including any impacts on waste generation levels, recycling rates and whether there have been any significant changes to fly tipping rates. Finally, it's also important to note that most fly tipping incidents in England are caused by waste criminals and rogue traders and have limited connection with household waste policies. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do, Councillor. Just wanted to ask, if by the end of the year we do see a significant increase in fly tipping as a result of this change, will the council consider a move back from 3-week back to 2-week bin collections?
I think it'd be far too early to make that decision, to be honest, Mr. Allen. I think, you know, this is a huge change with many benefits that it does bring. I'm confident that it won't increase fly tipping rates because that's what the evidence suggests. Where many other local authorities have made the change, they haven't seen that increase. So I think it's too early to tell, but obviously we will continue to monitor it. What I would add, it's actually National Fly Tipping Week, or the campaign against fly tipping next week. And it's important to highlight that if people do consider fly tipping, they can get a fine of up to £1,000. So I would really urge waste criminals and rogue traders to think twice. We do have a quite successful rate here in West Berkshire of issuing those fines to waste criminals. So, you know, ahead of next week, it's an opportunity to highlight that.
The next question is to the Portfolio of Children and Family Services from Mr. Goatley, who many members in the public are now putting a radius around 2,000 miles from Newbury and are intrigued about where you might be. You may wish to share that before your supplementary, you may not. But anyway, we welcome your presence. At least remotely, and Councillor Codling.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Goatley. This is a valid and important question and one that deserves a thoughtful and balanced response. Firstly, it's essential to recognise that children in question are likely to have highly complex needs, often due to significant trauma, disability or safeguarding concerns, which require intensive specialist support. These placement provisions are not typical. They are exceptional and often involve bespoke arrangements to ensure the children's safety, stability and therapeutic recovery. From a safeguarding and statutory duty perspective, local authorities are legally and morally obligated to protect children who cannot live safely with their families. In some cases, this means highly commissioning specialist care environments, which can be costly but are often necessary to prevent further harm and to support long-term outcomes. From a taxpayer value perspective, it is important to consider not just the immediate cost, but the long-term societal impact. Investing in high-quality care now can reduce future costs in health, criminal justice and adult social care. It's also a reflection of our collective values that every child, regardless of their background or circumstances, deserves dignity, safety and the opportunity to thrive. That said, the system must also be accountable. We are actively working to improve commissioning, explore and develop local provision and reduce reliance on high-cost placements through early intervention, family support and fostering recruitment. These efforts aim to ensure better outcomes for children and better value for public money. While the figures may seem stark, it reflects the complexity of need and the seriousness of our safeguarding responsibilities. The challenge is not whether we should spend to protect children, but how we can do so more effectively, sustainably, and compassionately. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
You can.
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much for that detailed answer. Now, I'm often thought of as critical of the council, but your area is one of the ones that I think is actually run well. But my concern was that if you have, say, certain forms of cancer and there's a treatment, but it's too expensive, the NHS will block it through NICE. And I'm just wondering where the limit is on the send for the children, whether there is an upper limit at all, where you have to step in and say, look, sorry, we just can't afford this.
Thank you, Mr. Goatley. You might be assisted by Rebecca Wilshire, Service Director for Children's Social Care.
Yeah, happy to take that. Thank you. And, you know, it is a fair question. I wouldn't say we have an upper limit in terms of putting on a value, but every placement before every provision before we get to that stage is reviewed, it's agreed by myself. We look at it from a needs and outcome perspective. We have now got a commissioning provision that is heavily looking into this area. So we will always go first with the outcome of the child, the needs of the child, and making sure that's safe and stability, as well as how are we funding this and how is it meeting needs. There is also a work that we need to be doing around joint funding of placements, continued healthcare and health contributions that we are also doing more work in. But there isn't an upper limit. I absolutely hear what you're saying, but we are working with local providers to try and manage that, so we are not in that position.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goatley. Enjoy wherever you are.
Turkey.
Enjoy. Question H is Mr. Garvey to Councillor Foote for Culture, Leisure, Sport and Countryside.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garvey, for your question. I'm intrigued to know where you got the information that Everyone Active is going to run this facility at Faraday Road, because that's news to me, I have to say. What I would say is that we are intending to go out for a market engagement exercise, and when those expressions of interest have been made, we will obviously assess them, and ultimately a decision will be made about running the facility. Do you have a supplementary question, please?
Thank you for your question, for your answer, Councillor Foote. It's good news that there will be a tendering process and expressions of interest. I guess my only supplementary question, and I hear the statement made at the start of this meeting by the leader about respect and me saying illiteracy and all that kind of stuff. But in the media, when the new pitch was announced, you went out saying that the pitch is going to be profit making. The only way this pitch can recover its costs in its proposed form is if there isn't a business appointed to run it. Once you appoint a private business to run it, if that's what happens, once you take out the management costs, you're not going to recover the costs from the pitch, which is why myself and others have lobbied for it to be given to a community entity or a team to run. So on that basis, it is very good news that you are putting it out for expressions of interest. Thank you.
And Mr. Garvey, you make an absolute statement that we cannot make a surplus on that business case, if you like. All that work will be done, as you would expect, when offers, bids, tenders come in with a business case for us to assess that A, it's realistic, B, it delivers the return that pays for our financing costs, which you know about. We've not hidden those at all. And that the provider, Mr. Garvey, is resilient and capable of running the site, the facility, for quite some years. The danger would be somebody running it for a couple of years and then not being able to progress
Correct.
beyond. Yeah. So thanks. I mean, it's a good question. I think the preamble regarding illiteracy is unnecessary. But I said that.
Can I just address that? I'm perfect. I perfectly understand if you don't want me to do that, but I just feel like what you just said is perfectly what you would expect to be done prior to even the pitch being proposed, in my opinion. And that's all. You know, if this work had been done prior to the proposal coming forward, you know, people wouldn't be concerned about the business model or the finance model. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. The next one up is question I, again to Stuart Gawley from Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, for the question. I apologise now. It's a bit of a long one, but I think it gives you plenty of detail, hopefully, and I'm happy to send it to you by email if you wish. So Thames Water are the responsible body for the sewage systems across West Berkshire, and we at the council work closely with them to enable their works where required through things like highways permits, etc., and working on that requirement. So Thames Water have provided the latest update of what's going on out there in the west of the district. So their update is that we are currently addressing issues of groundwater infiltration into the sewer network within the East Shefford Sewage Treatment Works catchment area. And this affects villages in Upper Lambourne, East Garston, Eastbury, Great Shefford and Western Village. To mitigate the impact of infiltration on our customers and the environment, we've made significant investments in this catchment. We continue to work closely with local stakeholder groups, including SAGLOV, and I can't remember the full name of it, but it's one of the sewage groups and volunteer groups out in the Lambourne area. They've also worked with parish councils and Lambourne Valley Flood Forum to better understand and reduce the levels of groundwater entering the sewer network. Over the past 2 years, we've undertaken extensive work to investigate and resolve infiltration issues. This has included comprehensive CCTV surveys across the substantial sections of the sewer network to identify areas requiring targeted investment. Based on these findings, we have delivered the following improvements in the network. Upper Lambourne, 1,250 metres of leak-tight lining installed and 19 manholes sealed. Eastbury, 450 metres of leak-tight lining installed and 9 manholes sealed. East Garston, 150 metres of leak-tight lining installed. Great Shefford, 48 metres of leak-tight lining installed and 4 manholes sealed. Western, 500 metres of leak-tight lining installed and associated manhole sealing completed. In addition, last year, we, Thames Water, invested £14 million at East Shefford Sewage Treatment Works. This included the installation of an active flow system to enhance treatment performance and effluent quality, along with an increase in storm tank capacity by 55 metres cubed. So from 353 metres cubed to 408 metres cubed. Next steps, we're currently finalising our assessment of a wider strategy for the catchment to address spills at East Shefford Sewage Treatment Works and East Garston Sewage Pumping Station as part of the AMP8 Storm Overflow Programme. This is expected to include works across the sewage treatment works, sewer network and pumping stations. Network catchment lining. As part of the Storm Overflow Programme, we undertake further lining works across the catchment to close gaps in areas not previously addressed. Additional lining works were also completed in 2008 and 2015, and scoping is ongoing, and the next phase of lining is planned for completion during 2026. Pumping stations, a project is currently being developed to replace the rising main from Eastbury Pumping Station. The detailed design, final location and delivery time frame are still under review. Sewage treatment works, works required at the sewage treatment works are currently being defined, and we will provide further information as the project scope is confirmed. So apologies that was a long answer, but I hope Thames Water have answered that well. I mean, obviously, I would naturally want them to go further and faster, and I would again urge the Labour government to really make sure they put a rocket up our water companies to solve this problem once and for all. Do you have a supplementary question?
Gosh, I thank you for that long answer, Councillor Gawley. I don't really have a supplementary at the moment. I'm quite grateful if you shared that information. It'd be great if you could send that to me by email as well, so that I can share that with the people that have contacted me about it.
Absolutely, no worries.
Thank you very much. Back to Mr. Garvey for question J. Back to Councillor Foot, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garvey. I mean, clearly this is very similar to your earlier question, and I hope I've covered that by saying that we are intending to go out to a market engagement exercise. But do you have a further supplementary question?
Yeah, I guess this has already been answered. I guess the supplementary would be, and it touches on the clarification that I gave to Councillor Brooks. Had this project been, had there been proper planning of this project, and again, don't shoot me for saying this, had the proper financial planning gone on first, and an operator had been appointed, or at least expressions of interest had already taken place, the operators could have got match funding for the 1.25 million from the council, plus other grant funding sources, and we could have had the community football stadium that was equal to or better than what was there previously. I think that was the manifesto commitment. This is simply around a 3G pitch. And I just feel like there's an opportunity to be missed. But I do welcome the fact that you will at least now go out to expressions of interest on this, and hopefully, we can find an operator that will recover the costs of the investment for the council, and it won't actually be a drain on the council resources. Thank you.
Nothing really to add then. Thank you for your comments. I'm sure in time, we'll say again, we wanted to go with pace on this facility, and are still trying to move with pace. You have the next question as well, Mr. Garvey, to Ian Cottingham. Ian.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey, for your question. I can confirm that we will be implementing a spend panel. As I said earlier, further details will follow later on this evening. Do you have a follow-up question?
Sorry, give me 1 second. I guess my only follow-up would be is that in addition to the spend panel, hopefully, given the huge interest in not just Thatcham but district-wide in introduction of these 20 mile per hour zones, perhaps we can have an agenda at the next a discussion on the agenda at the next full council meeting. I actually welcome reduction of speeds. I think many people in the community, regardless of where it is in the district, if you ask them, do you support speed reductions, I think the answers would be overwhelmingly yes. Again, I just feel like these decisions are pretty big, especially when it covers a whole town. You'd think that, naturally this would come to council before a decision was made instead of being a delegated decision. Thank you.
Well, I mean, that goes over towards highways. That consultation finished this week, as you know. A lot of responses, I believe, they'll need to be analysed. It really is when you say, we went out to say, here's what we want to do. It wasn't quite like that. You design a scheme that you believe are highways engineers that say this will implement what the administration wish to achieve. But consultation is important. And then you help get that back to review your scheme. So I think it's a tried and trusted process. I have heard, and Stuart, you may want to come in, I've heard people saying, well, why didn't you consult to design the scheme? But it's unusual to do that, not in my experience. I mean, normally you design a traffic lights, a roundabout, and you go and consult on it. You don't say, shall we all get together and design the roundabout? Am I missing something, Stuart?
No. I mean, I'm happy to add to that we base this off of the field pilot that we did last year. So we've got a methodology that we've used in terms of what streets we would include in such a scheme. And that also went out to consultation, if you will, to ward members, the democratically elected ward members of Thatcham, to have their input before proceeding to public consultation. And as Councillor Brooks mentioned, that is a public consultation, and that has closed, and we will look at that and make modifications or not or nothing at all, depending on the outcome of that consultation once it's analysed. And what I would say is the scheme is not delegated. The decision is not delegated. Highways changes are an individual decision process. They're not a delegated decision to officers.
That sort of bumps into the next question in a way, which is L, and that is to you, Stuart.
Yep.
A different question, but a related subject.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Garvey, for the question. The cost of work to date on the Thatcham 20 mile an hour project is far less than £10,000. It's also important to highlight at this point this is a capital spend and is separate to the revenue budget pressures you allude to in your questions this evening. And I would hope you agree that improving road safety and the impact of accidents and incidents on our roads is money well spent. And studies have shown that introducing 20 mile an hour speed limits and zones can have wider benefits to physical and mental health, including encouraging active travel, such as walking and cycling, improving air quality and reducing noise pollution. I'm therefore confident that this proposal and future proposals planned would give value for money if implemented. Do you have a supplementary question, Mr. Garvey?
I do. I don't think my original question was answered, which was how much does the council intend to spend on implementing the Thatcham 20 mile per hour town project? But as Councillor Brooks and yourself said, this all merges together. I would dispute that, planning a new traffic light or a new roundabout would be compared to, a new 20 mile per hour town proposal. All I'd say is, I've asked for roads in Thatcham in the past to be made 20 mile per hour, and the police opposed it, saying that they wouldn't enforce it. So being able to change something is probably a once in a generational opportunity when it comes to certain roads. There are roads that were left out of the proposal, and then there's other roads that have been included that, living in Thatcham, you think, well, why would you make that 20 mile per hour? That's all I'm saying. If you go out to residents, businesses, and the emergency services, which the council don't appear to have mentioned whether the police support this, the fire brigade support it, ambulance service support it. I know the limits won't apply to them, obviously, but will the police enforce it? So there's lots of other questions that I don't want to get into because I'm conscious that I don't want to introduce new subject matter. But it, just to come back on your previous point, I don't think it is the same as a new roundabout or a new traffic light. Anyway, if you could tell us how much the proposed spend is on the Thatcham 20 mile per hour town project, I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll bring you in, Councillor Gorley. I've given you a lot of latitude there to make a bit of a statement, and
thank you. And I didn't mean to, sorry, but I appreciate it.
You didn't say in your, and I don't want to split hairs here. You didn't say in your question, how much does it intend to spend on the implementation? Clearly, that's what you meant. If it's not implemented, obviously, we're not going to spend terribly much money on it, are we? One thing Stuart might say, I don't put words in his mouth, but changing 20 mile per hour speed limits piecemeal, changing speed limits piecemeal is darn difficult. I spent the best part of 3 to 4 years to get the A4 at the bottom of Hennickworthy Field, the south of Hennickworthy Sports Field, down from 40 to 30. When you do them incrementally like that, it's a huge amount of work and a long, long time. The idea of a 20 mile per hour zone is as much about drivers getting used to being in an area that is 20 miles. I had one member of the public come to me and say, in my road, it's so short you couldn't get up to 30 miles per hour from a standing start. What on earth are you doing taking it down to 20? But it is because, as I understand it, Councillor Gorley, drivers coming off a designated 30 mile per hour road, A4, Lower Way, for instance, the Moors, will get to know, local drivers obviously, I then move into a 20 mile per hour zone. I don't have to look and wonder and worry. I go to 20. So that, I'm not sure that's been fully understood. We'll see what the consultation says. Councillor Gawley, sorry, I've
Yeah, I think there are
jumped.
kind of two questions in there, and that was around what's the intended cost, and also why didn't we go to consultation? So I think it's great news that the consultation's closed yesterday, and we will analyse those results. And I think what I would say is you highlight there, Mr. Garvey, that the emergency services haven't. That this is part of the consultation process. We have statutory consultees, and the police are one of those, alongside other statutory consultees. So we will bear that in mind, that feedback that comes back. And this, in terms of the second bit, in terms of the cost, as I said, I think the consultation has just closed. So I think it's hard to give you a cost on what we're going to spend when we don't know what the finished proposal is going to look like. So it would be inappropriate at this point to predetermine any outcome or implementation. So thank you for the question.
So, Mr. Garvey, we are over 30 minutes, but I'm going to take the next question, M, because it seemed to me to be a bit churlish to not to truncate it at this point. So that's with Councillor Cottingham.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey, for your latest question. Right, since coming into power in 2023, the lived-in administration has invested significantly in services provided to residents. For example, we have more people receiving social care for adults and children. We've invested in repairing potholes, improving roads across the district. We have more sporting facilities and pitches and residents using them. We have more streams of recycling and have increased the tonnage of things being recycled. We have more accessibility to library services, such as delivering prescriptions and books to the most vulnerable in West Berkshire Council. The list goes on. So in the time, the gap in our funding requirement is the result of 15 years of austerity, with a 38% real terms reduction in our budget. With adequate funding from central government, we would not have to increase council tax by the maximum allowed. Do you have a follow-up question, Mr. Garvey?
I do. Again, the original point of the question was to ask how much council tax would need to go up to put the council in a sustainable position. Now, sustainable is each of us different perspective, but what I would say is, based on that number, can we not just go to a referendum with members of the public and say, hey, this is the figure council tax would need to go up to put the council in a sustainable position? And I will note, I could have made a point about who was in government when austerity came around, but I'll decline from doing so. Thank you.
Well, the point about council tax is, I've always thought this was a bit perverse, really. You go out for a referendum to say, do you want to pay more tax? There will be people who understand that. You spend about £300,000 to do the referendum. I'm told, or maybe over or under. And then you end up having lost the £300,000 and people have told you, no, I don't want to pay more tax. So it's a little bit of a sort of funny offer, really, to councils. And I think only one has ever done it. And I think they were roundly told, don't. So, Mr. Garvey, the mechanism is there, but, councillors don't tend to go in that direction. Anyway, last point on this to Councillor Cottingham, then I'm moving on.
So just relating to Mr. Goatley, it would be like turkeys voting for Christmas.
And a little bit of humour as we get to the end there. Now, this debate, of course, isn't over. The public questions are over. But, of course, we're going to go straight into the item proper as per the agenda. Now, this item is number 6, the Q2 financial performance report. What have I not done? Petitions? Okay, thank you. Sorry, I did see it there and I thought you mustn't forget that. Are there any petitions?
None received, Leader.
Thank you very much. So I am going on now to the financial performance report, Q2. Councillor Cottingham will introduce the report. Other members, as I said earlier, will speak, portfolio members. As the recommendation included in the report on page 19 is for members to note only, There's no need to vote on the item. Councillor Cottingham to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Right, so it's no secret that we continue to face significant financial pressures. We know it, our residents know it. We've always been very open about the financial challenges that we face together, now and over previous months and years. It is our residents who primarily fund, as we've discussed earlier, what we do via their council tax, and who use the services which we provide. And it's right that they know of our financial constraints and the difficult decisions which we have to take. So yes, we continue to face significant financial pressure. We all know this from the report today, which we're discussing today. We know this from the current and previous administrations. This has been the reality of the last 15 years of austerity coming from central governments onto local government funding. This report highlights the most significant financial pressures are in adult and children's services. Over recent years, we have seen our activities in these areas increasingly grow in size, in demand. Now, almost 2/3 of our budget is spent on supporting the most vulnerable residents in our district. As I mentioned earlier, the Institute of Government highlighted last month that nationally since 2010, there has been a 90% real-term increase in adult and children's service budgets. However, there's been a 38% reduction in council funding budgets. I also wish to address the concerns over bankruptcy, which have been raised during the questions earlier this evening. Given the challenging financial position we've inherited, combined with a rapidly rising cost pressure and the broken market for parts of social care system, we engaged with the government to have a successful application for exceptional financial support earlier this year. This has enabled our general fund position to be a minimum level set by a 151 officer, £10 million, otherwise known as our Chief Finance Officer, to give us the contingency stroke headroom to cope with projected budget overspend, as which we face now. Therefore, if this Q2 year-end forecast overspend becomes the year-end reality, we will have sufficient reserves to ensure that there is a general fund, i.e. we've got enough contingency there. For future years, this of course will put extra pressure on our finances, and we will address this report to the executive in December. We acknowledge this report highlights a significant overspend forecast for the year-end financial year, 6.8 million. I can reassure residents we are responding to this financial pressure through a variety of measures to mitigate costs wherever possible, including, firstly, implementing a spend panel. We enacted measures in 2023 to take decisive action and swift action to double and triple check every element of spend across the council, and we'll be building upon this experience now again. Secondly, we'll be reviewing all posts that are vacant. Thirdly, we'll be realising the investment which we've made at our administration in the Children's Service Commissioning function, as mentioned by Rebecca earlier, creating one from scratch from transformation funding. Fourthly, we're reviewing the capital programme for any efficiency savings. And lastly, introducing greater oversight and constant review for all on social care placements to ensure we achieve best value, which is really important, understanding how we're placing children and adults and whether we can get better value from that commissioning process. These measures highlight the grip that we're providing to mitigate these rising pressures. These pressures are unlikely to go away, as we know that home to school transport and costs for children with SEND have risen significantly over the last 5 years. We know that the cost of our most expensive placements have risen by 165% over the past 5 years, and that borrowing costs nationally have increased over recent years. These challenges are real. These costs help support our residents who are in need of the most help. However, we are proud to continue to deliver such positive services which we can be proud of. A report we will consider later in the evening recognises that, as judged by the recent Ofsted inspection of our children's services being good, a service we can rightly be proud of indeed. However, we recognise the challenges we continue to face. We are resolute in the need to tackle these to reduce costs and continue to deliver the strong levels of public services for our residents across the district.
Thank you for that introduction, and I'm sure you're going to get questions later. But before I bring in the other side, in the time-honoured way, other portfolio holders are entitled to speak, and I know I've got Councillor Codling next.
Thank you, Leader. In 2023, the cost of running children's services was just over 11 million, and for this year we budgeted 9.8. The current projection is 21.4 million. There's several reasons for this continued increase, one of which is the number of young people coming into residential care. Our average increase of young people coming into care had been budgeted for 1 child each year, but currently we have an additional 4. Obviously, we will do what we can to get them home. Our most expensive placements are complex, with these young people suffering serious trauma and needing our protection and support. It is our duty, no, our responsibility, to ensure they are well looked after and found stable homes where they are loved, appreciated, and given the opportunity to thrive and be their best selves. Increases have been imposed by private providers in a difficult, unregulated market, with some companies making huge profits. Absolutely, wherever possible, we place children in our care with our own amazing foster carers and kinship carers. Increased recruitment of foster carers has made a huge difference, and kinship care for us is a strength. Other cost increases have been with childcare lawyers, sometimes difficult to find and always expensive. But when cases go to court, we have no choice. Another area of high cost that has already been mentioned is home to school transport, but we do seem to be keeping a lid on that one. In 22-23, the cost was 3.6 million, and this year we have budgeted 5.1, and we're currently expecting to keep to this. However, it only takes one more bus company to give notice on a route, and then we have additional pressures. Our transport team have worked tirelessly to keep the cost down. Cost mitigations are going on all the time, and this includes working with health partners. And over the last 6 months, we've been able to claim almost £1 million funding back towards the care of some of our children. And this work continues. All cases are reviewed continuously. Our early help team and family hubs work with families and young people to help prevent family breakdown and the children coming into care. We now have a commissioning team who will be working to drive down the costs of these placements, and will review with social workers every child placement constantly for not only suitability but cost. All placements are reviewed with the possibility of return home or kinship care wherever possible. We've also set up a spending panel reviewing all costs, and although we have reduced our reliance on agency staff, we will continue to drive this down and try and convert more of them to permanent staff. We are doing absolutely everything we can to keep our costs down in a very difficult market right now. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that. And then I've got Councillor Clark on adult social care.
Thank you, Leader. I'll try and make this quick. I hate a long speech, but there is a lot to say. We face a funding shortfall of £3.7 million for this quarter's budget forecast in adult social care. But I don't want to be in a position where we tell the people of West Berkshire that we aren't making sure that they get the best care. As pointed out by Mr. Garvey earlier this evening, only a few weeks ago, I was standing in this chamber informing assembled members that we need to make difficult decisions about who would provide services for our resource centres in order to save £500,000. At the end of the day, the most important thing was making sure that people in West Berkshire received the same quality of care that they had always received. This meant that we didn't make that saving, and this was the right decision. The £500,000 savings that would have been made from the resource centres are now a cost. We are also exploring who provides our care homes and whether these can be provided by the private sector. Another saving, this time of approximately £2 million. But this transfer has become embroiled in land ownership issues, the state of the market, and the finances of alternative providers, which has not worked in our favour. So again, we have put these costs back into our budget forecast. That's £2.5 million that could have been saved. but we are doing the right thing with these buildings and continuing to explore options. It has taken longer than expected. And then the rest of the money, the £1.2 million. In adult social care, we have what we call a needs-led budget, which means that our commitments are driven by the people who come to us needing support. We have to arrange care needs to be met once we have established that people are eligible. We have a well-established forecasting tool which has served us well, and it served the previous administration too. But it is difficult to know both the number of people that will come to us and the extent of the support that they will need. A single care case could cost us over £700,000 a year. And the complexity of our care cases has also increased. Since our last quarter's forecasts, costs have increased. These pressures are not easy to predict and are outside of our direct control, but we are responding in a responsible manner in line with other authorities. It is also difficult to predict how much individuals can pay towards the cost of their care. We're in the unusual situation this quarter where we have a notable drop in the amount of people who are able to pay for their own care, to the tune of almost £1 million. But important to note here that we perform well in making sure that we collect any contributions which we are legally allowed to receive. That's benchmarked against other authorities. So we know that we are making the right decisions and they have financial impact. It is clear that these decisions were made for the right reasons, and we face a huge increase in the number of care cases we receive, which costs us a lot of money. But most importantly, what are we doing about it? I have made it clear to officers that I expect greater scrutiny, control and visibility. This will come in the form of more senior officers directly scrutinising decisions on paying for care services and reducing existing costs wherever possible. I know that we already have many measures in place which deliver good results, but clearly we will need to exert even more control in the coming months. I have already started to receive more detailed briefings on this issue, and I will be following this very closely. And progress is being made. I was pleased to see that over recent weeks, the decisions on funded care have cost less than the model budget, and that the relevant service director is intervening directly on these cases with the highest costs. So this scrutiny is already increasing. I also know that our commissioning service is developing their capacity in managing the care market. This should mean that the cost of care is no higher than it needs to be. We will continue to benchmark this against other authorities and manage what has been the main driver for the increased costs. These interventions should reduce the scale of the current overspend, and we are already seeing savings. This is a serious matter, and I will provide updates at future meetings of the executive as required.
Grateful for that from the three of you. I'm not sure if any other executive member wishes to intervene at this time, but I wouldn't stop them if they want to do later. But I am going, obviously, across the chamber now to the Leader of the Opposition, then the Leader of the Minority Group. And I know that Councillor Abbs has got his hand up within the sort of Zoom Teams room. So I would imagine, Councillor McKinney, you'd like to come in?
Yes, please, Councillor Brooks. Thank you. I've got a few questions and points to make. Firstly, can I just ask Councillor Codling, could you repeat those figures that you gave about the Children's Services budget in 2023 and what it was this year? I didn't quite catch them.
11 million.
Yeah.
This year we budgeted, 22-23, 11 million. This year we budgeted for 19.8, but we're expecting a 21.4 million outcome.
Thank you for that. I thought you said 9.8. I didn't hear the teen. That's lovely. This is serious. This is the biggest jump in an overspend outturn in one quarter than I can ever remember, including during COVID. And what's more worrying is that this isn't an overspend against last year's budget. This is an overspend against what the council's own budget, what the administration's own budget was in February. And it's worse than that. It's 6 million worse than you were telling us you were going to spend 3 months ago. So something's gone badly wrong here. I mean, this is financial chaos. Now, we know that residents have that view already, right? You look at the Newbury Weekly Newsletters pages, you look at the Facebook groups from the villages, they're saying that you've lost control of the finances. And Mr. Garvey was asking about poor financial decisions that have contributed to that. You know, you've spent, what, 700,000 on a football pitch, a grass football pitch, that you're about to rip up and start again? That's not control of finances, that's chaos. You're going to sell off the commercial property portfolio, crystallising losses that you don't need to crystallise, giving up £1 million of revenue. That's not control, that's chaos. You've just bumped your executive back up to 10 members. How can you justify spending an extra 10k on an executive portfolio when you're telling me you've got a spend panel, you've got senior officers scrutinising every bit of spend? How are they going to feel when you tell them, no, you can't have that essential spend in your service because we need 10 executive members? And let's not forget, you're not all over the detail here.
It's not unreasonable for me to ask you to move towards a question.
I'm so nearly there. Remember the transformation review that you brought to scrutiny and then executive? It had a spend in there that was undeliverable and out of date. You didn't know what the spend was going to be. But he said, oh, we'll just put in the number from the budget. Doesn't matter. Right? That is not control of our finances. That is not going to give the public confidence that you can turn this around. So my question, this is all very well talking about demand. It's your job to anticipate demand. You'll never get it bang on, but 6 million in 1 quarter is an unprecedented miss. What changes are you going to make to your modelling to make sure that this never happens again?
I think you got to a question that is absolutely pertinent, changing to modelling. I don't accept the word chaos. I do not accept it for one moment. I do not accept your points around transformation. I don't recognise them. Councillor Cottingham, it's important for you to come back, but I'm giving assurance, and you will too, that we've got the right controls in place, certainly going forward, as well as good ones going backwards. Councillor Cottingham.
Yeah, so I take the 6.8 million increase, i.e. 6.1 million in this current quarter. However, I'd just like to remind Councillor McKinnon that back in 2022-23 in Q1, there was a £8.1 million overspend between the budget and the outturn. So 3 years ago, your administration were forecasting an 8.1 million increase. So that is a context to your question. We're not in isolation as a local authority. All local authorities up and down the land are struggling, especially with adult social care. So a bit of context as well. Neighbouring authorities, Reading and Wokingham, is going to be spending roughly £45 million looking after their children this current financial year. Similar size authorities to ourselves, we're going to be spending 21.5 million. We have, unfortunately, seen a significant rise in demand, especially for residential care for children. There has been, as Councillor Colling said earlier, we were forecasting an increase of 1, but in fact we've actually seen 4 children come into requiring care. 3 years ago, we were spending £4 million on residential care. That is now going to increase to 9 million. So we've actually seen a significant increase in the unit cost of providing that care due to the complexity of children, but also the deregulated nature of children's care model. So we've discussed this at great length previously, how we as council taxpayers are funding sovereign wealth funds profiteering. However, as we discussed earlier, we will be looking at these care packages very, very closely to make sure we're not keeping children in care unnecessarily. We're not spending money frivolously, as been discussed earlier. We are providing care which is fit for purpose. Moving on to the transformation programme I did allude to earlier, within the report there is a 800k saving which we were hoping to happen this year. That has not occurred because of the NRS fiasco where they collapsed. We were looking to have a particular saving through TVI regarding technology of care regarding adults. We're waiting for the new provider before we can implement that particular project. So we have numerous controls in place with regarding looking at, especially 50% of our spend is in the care sector external costs, to make sure we are driving those commissioning costs down as far as we possibly can, reduce those unit costs. But we've been hit with the double whammy of especially in adult social care. The government's, in my opinion, misaligned increase in national insurance, which we've had to bear that cost. So we've seen a £30 increase per week in providing that care. It's roughly £1,500 per person, which again is added to the £3 million increase. So we've had these costs given to us, which we've had to take on the chin as such, but we're, as I say, trying to drive down the unit cost where we can to make sure we are providing fit for purpose care.
Thank you, Councillor Cottingham. I'll let you come back. I do want to go on to some other questioners, yeah?
Won't take long. Two very short ones. How can you say you don't recognise the transformation point that I raised when you and Councillor Poole sat in that meeting and said that that saving that's in the appendix will not be achieved? That's what you said.
I was actually, I'm trying to recall now. There are savings that you might, and we're doing a piece of work, by the way. I'll answer in a longer way than you might expect. Scrutiny committee, and I saw the chair of scrutiny today, expects and will see all the business case for transformation, Councillor McGinnon, where we are on those savings and where we're heading with those savings. That's appropriate, necessary, and will be done. So I don't understand that perhaps you're talking about one saving we're not going to deliver, or you're hearing about one of these. Well, let's talk about that. The £469,000 was in the paperwork. I remember. It was in a table of potential savings. You can see it in your mind, and so can I. At that point, we're in our final consideration of whether we should go ahead. And we didn't, as you know, because it came straight back in as a pressure. So I'm not here to ask you questions, but it is fair to amplify the point that Councillor Cottingham made. In the first quarter of the 2022-23 budget year, municipal year, your administration, I've looked at the paperwork, forecast an £8.1 million overspend in the first quarter after you'd set the budget in February. And you took at that point mitigation of £4.6 million of reserves from the fund to bring it down. So when you say, I've never seen anything like this before, you actually have, and not so long ago.
Well, I'm happy to answer questions. I wonder, what were you saying to me at that point when we reported an 8.1 million overspend? Was it a case of, yeah, fair enough, that model's skittish? Yeah, carry on, guys. So is that what you were saying?
I do remember what I said to you, but I'm not going to repeat it here. And I do remember also that during COVID, I was extremely supportive of you and the difficulties you were in. And frankly, you are experienced enough, you're able and capable and very clever, and you know what we're going through. And you know there are points you can make, it's quite fair, but we are suffering as a council, as are many councils, by growth in demand. 3 children have come in that we did not forecast. Nearly £3 million extra cost is now within, unless we can get them out of that expensive care soon, that'll be spent this year. We budgeted, Councillor Codling and I have been through this with Anne-Marie Dodds. We budgeted for 1 extra and we're at 4 extra. So should we have budgeted for 4 extra, Councillor McKinnon? Well, I don't think so, because the previous 3 years was 1 extra each year. So on trend, we were budgeting appropriately. That's a long-winded answer to your challenge.
It's fine.
And I'm back to you.
This one will take you not very long to answer at all. It might be for Councillor Cottingham as well. Obviously, you would wish, we would wish, all of us, that the finances was in a better state for whatever reason. Do you think that means, given that they're not in a better state, that the administration has applied a lack of political focus towards the council's finances?
No, not at all. Not for one moment. And Councillor Cottingham may come in as well. Not at all. I do not take that. I do not accept that. You're entitled to say it, but I do not accept it. Councillor Colling.
I asked a question, you've answered.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because if you look at where the overspend has been, the areas are not political. I think they're statutory. It doesn't matter which side of the chamber, you would have done exactly the same thing. I don't think there's any difference between the support which we've given to children, family services and adult social care.
I think political focus is actually slightly misleading. Have you as an administration, a Lib Dem administration, have you applied focus to the financial management of this council?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I've got a question for Councillor Clark and a question for Councillor Cottigan. I'm going to try and be quite positive in my questioning. Can I just say at the outset, I have a lot of sympathy with the administration. I think the council, whoever was in control of it, would be the victim of central government under both the parties that have been in control of central government of basically taking the view, let's cut funding to them while the demand is increasing, and it will be great because they'll get the blame and we won't get the blame. And that's exactly what the last government did. And that's exactly what the current government appears to be doing. Anyway, for Councillor Clark, on this business of the resource centres, I did point out at the budget meeting in February, you were never going to save £500,000, partly because it was never going to happen and it didn't. But also, if you'd sold them off, the next day you wouldn't get £500,000 back of savings this year, never mind in 1 quarter. So I think it's a bit disingenuous to put that down. It's just shuffling figures around on a piece of paper. However, that's not my question. My question is, Councillor Codling referred to increases in children's services spending because of private providers. You have found you can't find private providers to run the resource centres, as some of us predicted earlier in the year. Are you still pressing ahead with trying to sell off one or more of the care homes? Well, will you learn the lesson from this? You can't run these things privately at a profit with them taking a slice of it, and it just doesn't work. So are we still progressing with that, in my view, deeply flawed proposal?
Well, I know Councillor Clark. I'll let you come back, please, Councillor Clark.
Sure. I go back and remind Councillor Marsh that it was actually part of the reason that we decided not to follow through with the resource centres was because of the levels of care that we were able to provide for the people who use those resource centres. It wasn't a case of not being able to find other providers. It was a case of not being able to provide care at a similar level. So I think that's an important point. But also, I think if you look at the number of councils who provide care homes as part of the council's provision, that's a pretty low number countrywide. We're certainly in the minority there, is it? One other council? One or two other councils in the country. But thank you for the point.
I'm going to be careful what we say about care homes, Councillor Marsh, because we are still in an engagement to consider whether private providers would take them over. That is still going on, and I'm going to be very careful what we say while that exercise is going on. Did you want to come back?
Not on that. I've got another question. Okay, I'm going to be positive here and put a suggestion for Councillor Cottingham to consider. It's about the Bond Riverside. Now, the report identifies the disposal of council-owned property as contributing towards resolving the general fund reserve deficiency, which is one of the things that presumably you want to do. And the regeneration of Bond Riverside is a key objective of the council, as laid out in your strategy for Bond Riverside in May 2024, including the delivery of Gateway Plaza. And since then, various reports published by the council over the years actually have pointed to poor economic performance of council assets in Bond Riverside. Now, that review referred to the disposal of leaseholds held by the council and collaboration with the leaseholder of the Newbury Gateway site to facilitate regeneration. So the strategy to dispose of freeholds on that site, particularly Newbury Gateway, would deliver numerous benefits, including contribution to the General Fund Reserve, as I've said, economic inward investment, regeneration, producing more SIL contributions, and council tax and business rates, along with new housing as part of the scheme, and affordable housing and new employment. Now, I understand you may know more than I do, but I understand that the leaseholder wishes to progress this project, this Newbury Gateway project, and has various commercial occupiers lined up for the site. The paragraph 6.5 of the Bond River, I realise that this may be a bit detailed, but the Bond Riverside strategy document of last year listed 3 sub-projects for development: the football pitch, Newbury Gateway and the depot. So my question is, when does the council expect to announce a deal announcing the leaseholder or other third party to deliver Newbury Gateway, and what progress has been made to facilitate redevelopment of and extract value from the depot? And I apologise for the length of that, but I wanted to research it quite carefully. And I think the issue is, can we actually increase money coming into the council, coming into the general reserve to deal with this, rather than just looking to cut stuff? Councillor Cottingham.
It's a fair question, but I'm going to pick it up to start with, because I sit on the Bond Riverside sort of review group that meets with the leaseholder. And again, I've got to be careful what I say, because there is a market engagement exercise going on as we speak, and there are bids starting to arrive. I can't possibly give you more detail than that in such a sensitive period. By the end of the year, we'll know what we might be able to achieve on that Newbury Gateway, as you rightly call it. That also gives us some, we're getting some interest in the depot as well. So I promise to keep you informed, to keep members informed, to keep the council informed as things may start to move. You know, well, I expect you know, 20 years trying to do something with Bond Riverside, and here we keep going. One thing, or 2 things. One, all the assets which are like the depot, good size assets that will bring in a reasonable capital return, are being reviewed. There will be an asset review board that says, not just shall we sell this piecemeal, sell that, sell this, a programme of disposals probably. What Councillor McKinnon knows is that in terms of the property portfolio, we haven't lost all that income. He knows that. We haven't disposed of all those properties. And we have actually taken more time than he might have thought we would to consider disposing of them. You can't simply take that money, Councillor Marsh, and say, right, we'll hook that into the revenue account and spend that. It's ring-fenced in terms of capital, some transformation. So quite a complex, long answer. Councillor Cottingham, I wanted to pick up the Bond Riverside, because that in itself, I'm on top of in a way.
You're close to that type, like I say, regarding the commercial process. I think it's, as leader said, is what's really key is understanding our collective property portfolio and making sure we're optimizing either revenues or reducing costs across the board. So that is an exercise which we're currently undertaking to make sure that we are getting the best value for all of the properties which we have within our ownership, whether that be commercial, but also the assets which we have on the day-to-day basis. For example, this building is a good illustration.
There's also, Bond Riverside is quite complex. There's lots of flooding issues around there. Not that it does flood a lot, but actually it's within floodplains and flood zones. So we continue with our ambition to do exactly what you were reading out. I've got Councillor Abbs on screen. I'll come to him next.
Well, thank you very much, Leader. And very interesting, this. I think where I'm coming from is this is something that we've spoken about over the years. It's something that Ed Davey has spoken about, how adult social care is funded. And what we're facing as a council, and I'm absolutely with the council on this, is that the legal requirements that we have versus the fixed budget date that we have, it will never work, and it can't work, and this is a case in point where, it was wrong, and it was wrong because there were 4 rather than 1. But, whether we're looking at adult social care 3.7, children's social care 2.6, education and SEND 0.4, 6.7 of your 6.8 is out of your control. We can plan as much as we want as a council, but I don't see how we can ever have a fixed point in time and understand with whatever kind of crystal ball that we have that we're going to see into the future. Nobody can see into the future, and this is a case in point. So we've been hit by it. What needs to happen, in my own opinion, and I've said this before, is central government needs to get a grip on this. And they need to actually find a way of funding all these things that actually allows the council to show what it's actually doing. Because this is something we are committed legally requirement to deliver, but actually we have very little control over the budget side of it. We're just, you must deliver it, you must deliver it, you must deliver it. So with those things in place, my question is, do you agree that, if actually the budgeting was done differently, if central government stepped up and provided the proper funds for this, talking about us going cap in hand to the government asking for it is what they should have given us in the first place. So actually, this for me is not a sham, but it's a clear indication of how government after government has got this area funded incorrectly, and it needs to be sorted once and for all. I just hope you agree with that.
Well, it's easy to agree with it because it is true. We have the challenge is, Councillor Abbs, members, to prevent the 64 pence in the pound of the council taxpayers' money to become 94 pence in the pound, because that's its trajectory. And there is not enough financial support for councils. Simple. There's not enough money in councils. Up and down the country, there is almost a domino effect coming in now of councils saying, I cannot cope. We had pretty low reserves. When I look at Leicester City Council, I mentioned earlier, a £90 million challenge, they can achieve that through running their reserves down, but it's finite. It's finite.
Yeah.
Carry on like this, they will go to the position we are. When I spoke to the leader of Hampshire County Councils a year or so ago, he told me he had £500 million worth of reserves. That takes a lot of burning through. If we'd had more reserves, they were burnt through. They have been burnt through by the previous, it's county council. I keep talking city council because that's a district. I'm being very unfair on the city council. It's Leicester County Council. But, reserves, Councillor McKinnon will remind us, reserves are there not to be used if you can avoid it.
They're emergencies, yeah.
We haven't had what I call budget contingency reserves, where you were able to put earmarked funds away to call on during the year. So you set a budget, but you kept a number of millions back for contingency outside the general fund. And that would have been helpful if we could have continued to do that. But generally speaking, of course I can agree. Councillor Cottingham, would you like to add anything to Councillor?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. There's a recent CIFR report which indicates that the value of exceptional financial support within the councils in England is approaching £1.5 billion. So I'll just repeat that number, £1.5 billion, which the government have, in my view, and no doubt Councillor McKinnon will agree with this, your back doesn't look very good. It's just basically move the goalposts from an accounting perspective, allowing councils to move revenue expenditure onto the balance sheet, which the residents across the country will be paying for the next 20 years. It's just complete madness, a bit like what they're doing with SEND and the DSG override. It's a complete and utter accounting trick.
And it's not sustainable. And it is interesting that we can't borrow to spend on the day-to-day account. Government's been doing it for years and years and years and years. Okay, thank you for intervention so far. My intention now is to ask you to note this report There will be further conversation. I beg your pardon, Councillor Burke. I think you've only just indicated, but I should have looked up. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Leader. So we've heard about the challenges in children's in the budget, and I'm thinking about the impact of all this on our children and young people. Not everything that not the entire children and family services budget is spent on statutory commitments. So my question is really to the lead member and to, I suppose, to the entire executive. How are you going to protect the services such as early help, preventative work? How are you going to protect those all-important services?
We cannot possibly disagree with the thrust of your question, sir. Councillor Codling and
That actually becomes statutory from April under the government's new reforms. So that early help, the family hubs, that is all becoming part of our statutory duty. So we will be continuing that and we will have to budget accordingly.
So I think the question is a bit broader. And this is to Rebecca as well as you, in terms of what are the discretionary or non-statutory spend. But some of that is about early intervention. Some of that is about prevention, getting involved with a family earlier. Once that becomes discretionary, it becomes at risk of being cut. And it's happened. And it's happened. And you remember it happening. So, of course, that prevents us from preventing demand or mitigating demand. So we're talking to you tonight about spend panels. We're talking to you tonight about challenge sessions. We will be, for instance, bringing in an independent consultant to sit on our commissioning panels with the right skill set to challenge our officers as they issue those care packages, not to hold them up, but to give us some assurance that we're doing the best we can in commissioning. We're putting a commissioning team in place that I think you know, that can help manage the market, shop around better, get frameworks in place with bidders. That's in process. Councillor Foote, you're indicating.
Yeah, thanks very much, Leader. I thought I'd just come in to try and help clarify one aspect of Councillor Bowick's point. I chair the Health and Wellbeing Board, and I would recommend, if you haven't already done so, and I'm sure you probably have, to read the Director of Public Health's report, annual report, the most recent one that's come out, because he focuses pretty much entirely on early years intervention. Now, this is something that, as chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, I'm really interested in, because I'm keen to have a closer collaboration with our public health colleagues, because it seems to me at the moment there is rather I wouldn't so much say siloed working, but there's almost like ring-fenced barriers between public health spend and what we're doing at the council. But I'm sure we can improve on that. And that's something that I'd like to say we're going to really try and focus on at the Health and Wellbeing Board. And we can come back at a future date, hopefully, to the council and update how we're getting on with that. Thank you.
Councillor Bowick, do you want to come back?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Codling, Councillor Brooks and Councillor Foote. But Councillor Foote, my question, I absolutely agree. I think we all agree that early help is absolutely essential. Preventative expenditure, as the leader referred to, is vital. So my question really wasn't about your point around the Health and Wellbeing Board. It's interesting. Thank you for that. I did have another question, which you have answered ahead of me. I wanted to ask about commissioning. So thank you for that.
Grateful to you all. We've been on this for the other thing to remember is that this isn't the last time we'll be talking about this, and there will be a financial improvement programme. Shannon, I believe that's coming through in December to executive. So you will see the steps that we've started telling you about some of them this evening, haven't we? But the assurance that we have full understanding and a grip on the finances will be coming through again to give continual reassurance on this budget. I'm going to move on if I may. Thank you. And the next item up is the Ofsted report, I believe, and this one, it's again members to note only, but you're introducing it, Councillor Codling. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Firstly, I want to thank everyone involved in the Ofsted inspection in September. It was a period of intense scrutiny by Ofsted, and there were a lot of hours and hard work put in by a large number of staff. I'm not going to single anyone out for fear of missing someone, and it would take me some time to read everybody's names out, but thank you all. It is certainly a cause for celebration. I recognise that we were graded as good previously, absolutely. And as you can see from the Ofsted report, the judgment was across across all areas. And the commentary from the inspection period, during the inspection period, from the lead inspector and her associates was extremely positive. I almost felt we were going to get an outstanding in there, but we were so close. The areas that are covered in the report are the impact of leaders on social work practice was good. The experiences and progress of children who need help and protection was good. The experiences and progress of children in care was good. And for the first time, as a singled out area, was the experiences and progress of care leavers, and that was also good. So overall, we were good. The report recognised the financial challenges of the council, but they could see there have been significant progress over the past 2 years. We have a stable workforce with fewer agency staff. And on that, when we, 2.5 years ago, we had 32% agency staff in social workers. We're now down to 10 and 3 more are converting to permanent employees in the next few weeks. Our relationships with our partners, education, health service, police, voluntary sector has all developed hugely. The increase in foster care families with an ongoing recruitment campaign and the additional kinship carers has all made a huge difference to the lives of children and young people in West Berkshire. I am hugely proud of this Children's Services Department. Of course, there are areas to improve on, never settle for the status quo, and of course, we do want an outstanding next time. Ofsted highlighted areas for improvement, many of which are already happening and will also align with many of the new children's reforms from government, and these are in the report. Some of these include developing and implementing early help. We're already on the road for that. Reducing caseload and building workforce expertise. As I say, we have a stable workforce around our social workers, which has made a big difference. Expanding participation and voice of children. We have our view, our Children's Council. We actually listen to them. I've attended some training with some of the care leavers. We certainly want to know what our young people's experiences are to help them develop. And the other thing that we've done is embedded practice model and continuous learning with practice weeks here where our staff share good practice. So please, Executive, this is very much something to celebrate. Please note this report and recognise the work put in by our staff in keeping children and young people in our care safe and thriving in West Berkshire. Thank you.
Good news, and a lot of huge amount of work went on it. And thank you to Rebecca and your team. And I hope they feel good as they should. And to you personally, you've been with us for 18 months now. Tremendous job. Thank you. At the moment, I think I'll look to the other side of the room. Councillor Boat, did you want to come in? Yeah.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Codling, and congratulations to members of the executive, officers, council as a whole, really. It's really good to see that Children's Services continued with the direction of travel from good to good to good. Well done. And that bears out the leader's remarks at our meeting, a council meeting on Tuesday, where you said, for the past 30 years, this council has delivered, 30 years, this council has delivered good services. Absolutely. Councillor Cottingham said that you are proud of the result. I'm sure you all are. And so were we when we achieved good in 17, in 22. We were equally proud. The report says that in the period between the last two inspections, there was a deterioration in some services. And I wonder what the evidence was for that. What evidence did the inspectors who were inspecting now, what evidence did they have that there was a deterioration?
Councillor Codling.
Yeah, I don't know that I can necessarily go into detail in public. We have a meeting in a couple of weeks' time, I believe, to go over some of that. I think some of it was to do with case numbers and an amount of lack of oversight. At the time we came into power, the previous director of Children's Services had been a dual hatter. Mr. Coe was stepping up in that role, and I believe the previous incumbent of the role had given quite a lot of notice, but his replacement hadn't been recruited to. So we did it when we came into power. So I think there was a gap there that should have perhaps been filled earlier.
Ms. Councillor.
Oh, well, that's interesting, and largely speculation, and not really addressing the question that I asked you, Councillor Codling. What evidence was presented that there was a deterioration in the quality and effectiveness of services in that period?
Councillor Codling did say to you that there are things she will share with you in a meeting that has been set up already.
Okay.
I don't believe it is speculation. It was a matter of fact that Mr. Coe was managing both Children's Family Services, education and adult social care. You had put in process the plan to recruit a director of education.
Yes, we did.
You had. However, the previous director had long since retired, and there was a big interregnum, I would say to you, a long interregnum. You had officers working hard, but stepping up probably two rungs, two strands, two rungs on the hierarchy to step up to Children and Family Services and education. And that gave us an element of risk, Councillor Bowick. I'm not going to go into more detail because that will come in this meeting you attend. Of course.
Because this is a public meeting. I'm not going to argue the point. You're absolutely right. We need to talk about this around the table together in a collaborative way. But you haven't presented the situation as it genuinely was.
Then it will be discussed again. If you want to come back, Councillor Codling.
I can only say that the inspector saw case notes from lots of children's cases, probably most of our children, because there were at one point 7 inspectors. They would have looked at care director. They would have looked at the physical notes. They would have spoken to education. I don't think Ofsted will have made anything up.
No, I'm going to move on because, you know, there is a meeting set up to address the point. This is a good report. You, in 2 occasions, you got a good Ofsted outcome. However, we were very, very, very concerned that we would maintain good. We think we got close to outstanding in some ways, but we didn't get there. But there was risk. There was significant risk. Councillor McKinnon.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor Codling, I agree with my colleague. It's an inspection to be proud of. I think we're all really pleased that that arrived. And well done to you, Rebecca, and to all your team as well. I want to focus on the statement that you put in the press release and in the publicity around this, because I find it completely unacceptable. And the inclusion of a political attack on the previous administration using official council comms. You can put it in a Lib Dem leaflet, that's fine. You know, we can argue the toss about political points. But using official council comms to say that the previous administration had a limited focus on children's services, that is Donald Trump levels of propaganda. It's not what I would expect from a well-behaved political party here. And I want to ask you, your statement, when we were elected as the, I'm quoting you verbatim, when we were elected as the administration in 2023, we recognised there was limited focus on children's services. That is your exact words. Where in the Ofsted report does it say that in May 2023 there was limited focus on children's services?
Councillor Codling.
Thank you, Leader. I am quoting the fact that it says in the report, in the first paragraph, these changes in 2023, compounded by financial pressures and insufficient strategic and political focus. And with the experience I have had over the last 2.5 years, I look back at those first couple of months and thinking there wasn't the focus on that.
This is you now saying
This is me now. The first bit was from the report.
Did you read the first sentence, the sentence previously to that, please?
Yep, since the...
Why don't you read it, rather than telling us what to read?
It's up to Councillor Codling.
All right, Councillor Codling, you're
Yeah, I'll read it. Since the previous inspection in 22, there have been changes in the local authorities, corporate, political and children's services senior leadership. These changes in 2023.
So the change in the local authorities' political leadership is actually put as a context towards a break on progress.
What was it? Sorry?
A break on progress. There have been changes in the local authorities' corporate, political and children's services senior leadership. The change in political leadership happened in May 2023. That has acted as a break on progress and led to the quality of services in some areas of practice declining.
Councillor Codling.
I accept your reading of it. That's not how I read it.
Okay. That's what it says.
Councillor
Leader,
McKinnon.
that's what it says. What's your opinion, Leader?
She's accepted, she has your reading of it, and she has a different reading of it. Now, we can go around the block on this, and I know you are exercised.
I think it's an important point.
I have said to you in another place that I will look at the comms process in terms of statements. I've said that to you, but I have to say I will continue to state, as will I think Councillor Codling, there was, in my view, and I'm going to be very careful because of the officers involved, I really am. But I think we took risks on the management of those services. I really do. And I'm being careful because people are still working for this authority who had a blooming tough job that you put them into.
Now I think that's completely out of order, but you're entitled to make that point. And we're entitled to have a political discussion about it here.
And we're having it.
And you're entitled to disagree with me and I'm entitled to disagree with you. What is not acceptable is to put unsubstantiatable, unsupportable statements in an official council communication.
Okay.
That report, let me just finish, Leader, I'm really nearly done. That report does not say anywhere that the change in administration, prior to the change in administration, there was a lack of focus. It said changes that happened in 2023.
Okay.
And I want to look at that.
You want what?
I want it looked at, that communication.
Now, I don't agree with you in terms of the point. I do take the point in terms of communication. I've said that to you. But frankly, I know Councillor Codling and myself are of the opinion risks were taken in the management of that vital directorate. And no, I don't think I want to...
It's important. I promise. It won't take long. Risks may be taken.
Then I will have the last word if you don't...
Fine. Fine. You can always have the last word, leader. That's your privilege.
What I mean is, when I speak again, I'm not going to let you back in. Do you get it?
Okay. Staffing challenges, recruitment challenges. Of course, we would like to recruit directors as quickly as possible. Of course, we don't want to see acting up 2 rungs. But as Councillor Cottingham answered me earlier on, those failings, if they're failings, are not reflective of a lack of focus. They're reflective of challenges in the service.
Sir, and we'll close on this. I've been astonished at how many people have been acting up and asked to act up for years in this organisation, for years. And often 2 or 3 levels up from what their capability was. And some of them achieved good things. But don't tell me there was a recruitment problem when we had somebody running IT acting up for 4 years, which we've now corrected. And I'm moving on. I'm moving on. I'm moving on. I said I would be. Thank you very much, Councillor Codling. Do you have any final closing remarks on this?
No, I want to celebrate it, and I think we should all be doing that.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is the Rights of Way Improvement Plan going to be introduced by Councillor Nigel Foot. You will need a seconder for this, Councillor Foot. And I've got Councillor Gawley. Thank you very much.
I reserve my right as well, Leader.
Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Councillor Foot.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. I'm very happy to present the Public Rights of Way Improvement Plan to the Executive for adoption. West Berkshire Council has 740 miles or nearly 1,200 kilometres of footpaths within the district. And to give some degree of context, the highest density of public rights of way are in Bucklebury Ward and the lowest in Downlands up in the north. Our large conurbations of Newbury and Thatcham, together with the Kennet Valley, also, of course, have lower densities of public rights of way as they're largely built up areas. And as we all know, we're extremely fortunate to live in a district with such a large area of green and blue spaces. And in fact, 75% of our total district area forms part of the North Wessex Downs National Landscape, formerly known as the Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty. In the Public Rights of Way Improvement Plan on page 16, there's an item that I'm particularly pleased has been included. And this is the welfare value of green spaces. And it talks about the Orval tool, that's ORVAL tool. And this was a tool that was developed by the University of Exeter to try and quantify the welfare and economic value of public open spaces, including footpaths. The metric for our area of West Berkshire, using this Orval calculator, gives a value of our green spaces, including the footpaths, to the tune of £27,133,736 per annum. The estimated number of visits within our district over an annual period is calculated at 8.5 million. In addition, there are obviously wider economic benefits to the district of tourism and visitors, and our countryside and footpaths form part of that benefit, in addition to the clear health and well-being benefits I've mentioned earlier. An area of the improvement plan that is identified, which is of great importance, is improving disabled access to the countryside. And we will strive to make as many of our footpaths as we possibly can to the category of least restrictive access. And what that means is doing work such as removing stiles to facilitate access through gates rather than stiles, so disabled walkers can use them. So I'd like to finish by thanking sincerely all the Countryside and Public Rights of Way team for the huge amount of work they've done in preparing this plan, and I recommend its adoption to the Executive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Gawley, you'll wait a while, I think. Any comments from the rest of the Councillor Sumner?
Thank you, Leader. And thank you, Councillor, for presenting this. I'm really pleased to see reports come forward on public rights of way. I know the struggle that the team have had over many years to keep up with the vast amount of work that is required across our district. And you're absolutely right. We are very, very fortunate with what we've got. This is a comprehensive, very comprehensive report. And we should be very grateful to the officers for providing it and for everybody that contributed. It does, in looking through it, highlight to me the stark difference I've got in my ward. There we are sitting at the bottom of the table for Tyler, South and Holybrook. What it doesn't reflect, of course, in those tables is that we have things like Linear Park, which run right the way through the bottom of it. But we've only actually got a couple of public rights of way that go across it, and there are many, many footpaths within that aren't labelled. So from a public point of view, from a resident's point of view, they might pick that up and go, well, we've been quite hard done by. So I would just like to remind everybody that goes from Calcutt, from Southcote, from probably from Theale as well, will quite often use a fantastic area, which is rightly noted as a green space, although I don't think it's officially noted as a green space. And I look over to my planning colleagues to follow up on that one, just for absolute clarity. I don't think it actually made it into the local plan as a proper green space. There's a few points that you've just noted there actually. The use of our green spaces and our public rights of way through COVID were absolutely immensely important, and I don't think we can ever, I hope we never need to look at them in the same way again, but I hope we never go back on recognising the importance of what came through at that point. It was a hideous point in time. None of us want to relive it. I'm absolutely sure of that. Disabled access was something else that you mentioned, and we have a difficulty with Linear Park in particular, because one of the things that we dislike with Linear Park, which again is noted within the report, is the use of motorised vehicles through it. It's really, really difficult. It gets to the point now where you're almost on first name terms with the police. In fact, I think I probably was at one point a couple of years ago during the summer. It was like every other weekend. It was like, you again. In fairness to the Thames Valley Police, they get somebody out there as quickly as they can. And I dare say they've acted where they can. But it raises a difficult issue, because we have an absolute plethora of gates, all different shapes and sizes. Some of them actually don't allow disabled access. The shaping of them is such that it stops motorbikes going through and therefore stops wheelchairs going through. And I wonder if there's a piece of work at some point that needs to be done with signposting, which I know is also noted within the report, that actually gives people fair warning before they get to the gate, that they may or may not be able to get through it, depending on what gate it is. Within the actual report itself, just a few things, if I may. On page 26 of the agenda, page 4 of the plan, the diagram that's on there completely obliterates the text. You've probably noted that. It could be the way that it's uploaded, because I know from conversations with officers before that often when we look at it, it's not actually how it is. Page 62 of the plan has got a reference to Plan X. Still needs to be completed. 71, I'm not sure if it's aligned properly. Again, that could be the way that it's uploaded. 76 has got a missing figure 8. It just needs a proper proofreading before it goes out properly. But other than that, yeah, it's a fantastic thing to have out there, and I hope residents will, and parish councils will, receive it as it's intended to be.
Great, Batuya, Councillor Foote, and then Councillor Gawley.
Yeah, just very quick.
Sorry, I'll come back to you, Councillor Marshall. Let Councillor Foote respond.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I was just going to quickly respond to some of the points you made. Byways open to all traffic. which is the sort of situation you were experiencing in Linear Park, Councillor Sumner, they are a problem. I would say that we have, earlier on this evening, Simon Pike was in the room and he chairs the Mid and West Berkshire Local Access Forum, and that at that forum, I obviously go along to those as well. At those meetings, there's a motorcycle off-road representative that's there, and the people that abide by the rules, there's never a problem. It's those that don't, and Bucklebury Common experiences the same problem. But obviously, we will try and take that back. But thank you for the comments about the typos and things. I'd noted those as well, so we will try and adapt.
Thank you. I agree with the comments that have been made. I think it's an excellent report. I think that the network of public rights of way that we have in this area is one of the best things about living here, actually. And in fact, until a couple of months ago, when she finally set off on the final public right of way in the sky, my late border collie Lupin and I, over 15 years, have walked many, many miles of these pathways. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions about, bearing in mind what we've been hearing about how about the revenue budget and about resources being so stretched. I mean, have we got the resources in that department to maintain, deliver, expand, do all the things that the report wants to see? Because the impression one gets is of a fantastically dedicated and conscientious department that is quite stretched in terms of what it's already trying to achieve. And then more specifically, on page 26, it talks about some of the legal responsibilities to provide an up-to-date definitive map, incorporate anomalies into work programs, consider applications for definitive map modification orders. And as you know, Councillor Foote, because you're a fellow town councillor in Newbury, just one of these has taken many, many months in my ward, taken many, many months to resolve and still is unresolved. It's a huge amount of work. And I just wonder, can that circle, basically square be circle, circle be squared? Can we deliver this? Have we got the resources to do so? And can we do those sorts of,
I think we get it.
that sort of work? What we have.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Marsh. Yeah, I mean, there are resources allocated to this, and I mentioned previously that the health and wellbeing aspect of this is really important, and I want to explore avenues where we could perhaps potentially look at public health funding or something along those lines as well. So that's something that's I'm very interested in. You mentioned the definitive map, and actually Councillor Sumner earlier mentioned about sort of footways, unofficial footways, if I can put it like that, through built up areas. And we know the one up at Wash Common that you're dealing with at the moment. There is a heavy legal element to public rights of way, and I'm sure Councillor Sumner would agree with that. It is a lengthy process. In an ideal world, yes, we would, of course, have more officers available to do the work. But the team, as you know, do a very thorough job. But there is always the legal aspect that tends to slow things down a little bit. You know, for example, if objections are raised, if you've got a footpath going over a landowner's land and he's not in agreement with the walkers, or you know, it tends to go legal, and that can take quite a long time, ultimately ending up at the door of the planning inspectorate. So, you know, it does take time, unfortunately, but we will do our best. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Burke, I think, did you indicate so?
Yes, thank you, Leader. And thank you, Councillor Foote. Great plan. Echo the comments already made. Not all wards are the same. Even in leafy Aldermaston, we have some pockets of severe deprivation. How will you prioritise the wards? Because obviously there's going to be a rollout. How are you going to prioritise wards for the improvements that are held in the plan? That's the first part of that. And secondly, what could you just tell us a bit about what types of improvements that you're going to, are you making to improve access for our deprived and disabled users?
Thank you.
Yeah, well, there are several parts to my answer. One of which is we haven't mentioned the role of our volunteers. We're extremely grateful to the volunteers throughout the district. I mean, we all know of Beebout and Buckinghamshire, Berkshire and Oxfordshire Wildlife Trust, you know, the work they do at Greenham Common and various other places throughout the district. But we also have volunteers that help with our public rights of way maintenance, really, and landowners as well. It's a real collaborative effort. I think with regard to your point you made about deprivation, getting people active, I would refer you to the wellbeing walks. You'll see that that's mentioned in the report. These are walks that are hosted by volunteers that will take people out who may have mobility difficulties and encourage them to get out into the countryside and exercise and enjoy being in our lovely district. And I think, you know, again, it comes back to the issue of funding, but we have got funding that we are allocated to this area, the public rights of way, and the team, as you probably know, work extremely hard to maximise you know, their value for money, and every pound counts towards maintaining the public rights of way. Thanks.
Quick.
I'd like to come back. Okay, and then
I'm not trying to just close the meeting down, but we've been going over 2 hours, so
But Councillor Foote,
get some
how will you prioritise the wards?
Well, I'm not sure that we work along those lines in the sense that we prioritise wards. I think we prioritise areas where it's identified that there's a footpath that needs work, and we will go to do that.
Well, the delivery plan will, of course, help you with your answer as well, of course, won't it?
Well, I guess
As
so.
it comes about, yeah. So
But
final one.
My next question. Will you be co-producing with our disabled and younger users? Will you be co-producing the introduction of the 5 new routes a year that you talk about?
Yes, we do work with our disabled groups, and I mentioned earlier, you know, the local access forum. That's the whole. That's one of the whole reasons that forum exists. It provides, you know, we've got equestrians that sit on that. I mentioned the motorised vehicle lobby. You know, all disabled groups can access that local forum, and it is extremely well chaired by Simon Pike. And he's very keen on making sure that we deliver on the recommendations that come out of that forum. So that is taken into account, definitely.
Councillor Gawley, anything to add as seconding? I think
there's a few bits that I would kind of pick up on, having, you know, kind of read through this and kind of been a different version of the other half of the kind of transport portfolio, I guess, if you will, is how many kilometres of public rights of way we have in West Berkshire. It's not much less than the highways network, you know, which I think is an incredible statistic and one that we should be very, very proud of. And as an ex-townie from our neighbours in the west that wear red football t-shirts, I'm impeccably proud of being from, you know, and now a semi-townie, I'd like to consider, you know, Newbury's semi-townie. We have fantastic public rights of way, and it's excellent to have these on our doorstep and being in such close proximity. I think pretty much wherever we live in West Berkshire, we're not far away from a public right of way that will take us out into the middle of the green parts of West Berkshire. So it is an excellent network. We should be very proud of it. And I think as well, there's some great work going on that we can continue to leverage to connect in our rural areas to our more urban areas. The Ealing Way is a great example of that. and the work that goes on to continue to bring that from, say, Hampstead Norris down through and one day, hopefully, into Newbury, and hopefully we can replicate that along the canal corridor as well. I think one of the bits that I am particularly passionate about is our work with landowners, and there are some excellent examples where that's gone on. And I think to Councillor Burke's question around access for disabled folk, one of the examples I would cite, and there are a number in the report where we've been replacing stiles and looking at surfacing, is the Speen Moors recently has been redone, gates removed, and the surfacing improved to help access. And that's been a good piece of work where we can link into the permissive elements of that public right of way through Richard Sutton Estates, I think it is, isn't it? So continuing to collaborate with our landowners is absolutely critical, and we need to do more of it. And we need to hopefully engage those landowners and get them engaged in this process as well. But overall, I think it's excellent, and I look forward to seeing it continue to improve our rights of way. So thank you.
Thank you. The recommendations are to approve the adoption and publication of the Rights of Way Improvement Plan, and to agree the Countryside Service will produce annually actionable targets within the delivery plan. So I've just shortened that, but you can see it on the paperwork and on the on the report. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. The next item, Councillor Gaines, is to approve for public consultation. You will need a seconder if you propose this, but we are not discussing the content tonight. We're discussing, well, to a degree perhaps, but actually we're not making the decision tonight. Over to you, Councillor Gaines.
Yeah, so proposed, Chair. Leader.
Did it further?
I would. Do we get a seconder first?
The seconder will be Councillor Clark, and he will reserve his right. I'm not telling you what to do.
Correct, yeah.
Councillor Gaines, please introduce. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of this report is to seek approval from the Executive to carry out public consultation on the draft West Berkshire Council Local Plan, Enforcement Plan, 2025. I'm going to keep this brief, given the time and also the fact that actually this is for consultation rather than actually the plan itself. It will cover the plan in more detail when it returns after the consultation has been completed. The Council's current plan was approved in 2022. The plan has been refreshed and modified to update the priority classifications to ensure that the efforts are focused on the most significant breaches and to carry out initial assessments in a more efficient and effective manner. The main changes to the plan comprises the reprioritisation of investigation types to include an urgent level 1 and an additional level 4, which is suggested to be introduced for low priority investigations unlikely to result in serious harm. Level 1, being the urgent cases, require assessment within 2 working days. Examples are TPOs, tree preservation orders, and unauthorised work to listed buildings. Level 2 are cases of high priority and should be assessed within 15 working days. And examples of that are breaches causing significant pollution or traffic harm. While level 3 and level 4 cases would have longer assessment times. The table in the document actually details the possible times and also more examples of what actually would be included in each of those priorities. The changes aim to focus resources on the most significant breaches and improve response times. The table in the plan gives much more examples, as I just said. Additionally, the draft document provides information and guidance for residents, developers, and other interested parties on how complaints about unauthorised developments are handled. So in conclusion, I urge all interested parties to get involved and complete the consultation. Therefore, I'm asking the Executive to agree to this draft enforcement plan going out to consultation. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. So if other members of the Executive do not wish to add anything at this stage, Councillor Sommer.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Gaines, for presenting the report. I'll start by saying I'm absolutely supportive of this going to consultation. I didn't get a vote, but I'm going to support it anyway. It's important, I think, to note and repeat noting that this is a non-statutory element of service that we provide as an authority. The amount of focus that it gets probably far outweighs that status. And certainly in my ward over the last few years, there's been a couple of developments which had it not been for eagle-eyed residents and parish councillors constantly raising issues through the parish council, the parish council getting in touch with officers, I would like to say there'd have been some corrective action a lot sooner, but they wouldn't, because the reality of it is there are repeat offending developers out there, and I think that's something that will need to be mindful on the responses. And I hope it comes back in the responses, and I hope they're named, because I think it's important that officers here are fully aware, and I'm sure they are from the work that they keep doing. So yeah, massively important, non-statutory or not. The money that is put into it, the effort that is put into it, and the legal work that goes around it is huge. And I don't know that is something that is always recognised, but it really should be. I think the biggest question for me, though, is in relation to sufficient resourcing to deliver what is laid out in this plan. I absolutely support what's laid out in the plan and the way that it's been refreshed and reviewed. The ongoing issue has always been to stand fast with making sure that the resourcing is in place, to make sure that residents, parishes, and importantly developers are fully aware of what can and will be done should the need arise. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gaines, you want to come back?
Yeah, I certainly can't disagree with that. I mean, I think if we had 20 enforcement officers, it still wouldn't be enough. So we do have 2 excellent officers. We also have a manager of that team, and we are in the process of recruiting a compliance officer as well. So, but this is the important thing I think here is to have that urgency level, where it's critical that we actually respond within 2 days to anything that actually requires that. And there are some things that don't lead to significant harm, and therefore they are not so important. Although residents won't see that. Residents will actually see anything that's actually not supposed to be happening as a enforcement issue, which of course it is. But it won't get responded to in quite the same way as 2 working days for an urgent one.
Briefly come back on that, if I may, Lyd, just very briefly, and it's just to reinforce the point really, which is that a lot of the contacts that have been made in my ward have been through developers not following the plan that they've got in place to do the development. And that's the key, because that's what residents will look out for. So yeah, you're absolutely right in what you're saying, but that will be the key thing.
Which is where the compliance officer will come in rather than actually the enforcement officer, yeah.
Okay, I do wish to move on. And if you think I'm rushing now, it's because I've been told there's some programme on at 9 o'clock, which I don't watch myself, but evidently people are determined to get home to watch. Councillor Clark, did you want to add anything as second?
Very briefly, I agree with everything Councillor Sumner said and Councillor Gaines. I think this planning enforcement really legitimises the planning process to a certain extent. But it is really important to go out and consult with people. It is really important that people are able to refer to this document or documents like this to make the planning process even a little bit easier to understand. So I really, look forward to seeing this going out.
Okay. Councillor Gaines, did you want to summarise anything, or I'm going to look
No,
to...
no, Leader, I think that's it.
Okay. So all those in favour of putting this out to consultation, please show. Thank you. That caught you short, Councillor Cottingham. And then item 10, Councillor McCann, good news, it seems to me. It's not so long ago, Councillor McCann, that we had some fragmentation of the joint public protection partnership, and this is bringing it back together and officially. So well done to officers and yourself, and I invite you to introduce it. And have you got a seconder, sir?
Yes, Chairman, I proposed the recommendations in 2 through 2.1 through to 2.7, and I have a seconder, I believe, Chair.
And that is Councillor Justin Pepperton.
Yeah, Leader, I'll second and I'll reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. So, Councillor McCann, did you want to talk to the item, please?
Yes, Chair. I feel like someone who's run a 400-metre relay race, but I got the last 50 yards and I'm running over the line with the baton and stealing the glory. because the work that's been done behind the scenes with both Bracknell, Wokingham, officer level, member level, portfolio level for months and months and months. And indeed, Justin is a former portfolio holder for this particular part of the council, again, has put in an amazing amount of work to get it to here. I think it does nothing but good. It takes us back to where we were. For those members who are not aware, Wokingham has been shadowing the JPPC's committee meetings, and they have had input in almost every part of the new agreement. So I don't wish to take up a lot of time, but I do wish to put on record how much hard work and effort has been put in by the officers and their teams. And I would heartily recommend that we move forward. And I think it does nothing but good for both the residents of Wokingham, Bracknell, and indeed West Berkshire, Chair. Thank you.
Good news, good work. Councillor McKinnon.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McCann, for that. I remember when Wokingham exited the agreement, and I don't know how well you knew my former colleague Hilary Cole, but when she was angry about something, you certainly knew about it, I think, and you were very disappointed when that happened. Have you considered? Will there be, what sort of protection is there in this agreement to sort of protect the two remaining councils if something like this was to happen again? Are there sort of lock-in clauses or anything like that?
With your permission, Chair, I think we have gone back to all three parties have the option to walk away with a period of notice. I think it would be very difficult to tie the authorities into an agreement that they hadn't already previously agreed into. And well, I don't say anyone was to blame, but I think if we adopt the approach throughout the three authorities, which is about actually really working together, hearing and acting on each authority's concerns, perhaps in a more timely manner, then perhaps we can move forward. But we can't do anything other than effectively we're given a year's notice if they want to walk away. But we really are extended an olive branch, building bridges, developing relationships. In fact, to the point that today I instructed my officers to invite the lead members from the other authorities to my briefings, and they get the notes and minutes of that, so we become as inclusive as possible. And we have more input on the long-term agenda, and there's some real ownership as members across the three authorities.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, isn't it? A year's notice is something. Let's get it going, Councillor McCann. Let's get it good. Let's make sure it is good. And potentially you could look for a 3-year commitment. There'd have to be break clauses for performance or whatever, but that's the sort of thing that would be more sticky, if you like. But we'd be rushing our fences if we tried that now. I hope that helps. Councillor Marsh.
Very briefly, I want to watch Celebrity Traitors too. Great. I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. And as a member of the licensing committee, I've seen the value of this over the years in both its forms. Isn't this going to be a dead in the water if what we were discussing the other night happens a couple of years down the line? Or is this the kind of arrangement? Well, it's a genuine question. I'm not being critical.
I know.
Is this kind of arrangement going to be able to survive the merger of this local authority with two others?
It's got to come in first on this,
question,
because we noticed how much you love the idea of Ridgeway the other night. It's a real opportunity, frankly. You know that there are other joint arrangements with the legal team with Reading Borough. Why should it fall apart? Why shouldn't it actually take on more work within South Vale and Oxford? Why shouldn't it go out to other authorities? Good heavens, I think we're on a roll.
Good, jolly good. I'm delighted to hear it.
Councillor McCann.
I agree, boss.
Okay, Councillor Pemberton.
Yes, very brief. I did want to say a few words. I'm conscious that everybody wants to get off pretty swift. This is obviously a good news story. I celebrate it. I don't want to put words into the current portfolio holder's mouth when I say that actually the Public Protection Partnership and the JPPC that sits behind it from a governance perspective, I think it's something that we should celebrate. A very brief bit of background in terms of where this came from. This all sort of started with the peer review, which I was involved in late last year, and that reported sort of the early part of this year. There was a little bit of back and forth with the officers and the portfolio hold members between the three authorities to get to the stage where we are now. But I want to highlight some of the really, really key things that peer review picked out about this shared service. It was clear that it was very successful in how it had secured income from external and internal partners. It performs high quality statutory services which protect our residents. And it also delivers high quality outcomes for residents and businesses across the three partner councils. I was always very, very clear when I was in charge of this shared service that the deeper that partnership ran, the lower those costs would be, and the greater those shared resources, the greater our resilience and capacity would be to deal with some of the issues that the services face. Some of the really knotty stuff that affects people's lives, things like nuisance, statutory nuisance, environmental health licensing, things that not just affect people's quality of life, but affect their health as well. And I do think, and it's often understated, that this service punches above its weight in terms of how it operates. Because of its size and because of its scale, it had access to funding which this council simply wouldn't have had if it operated alone. So to Councillor Marsh's point, is this at risk? I hope not. I hope not. So if and when Ridgeway comes into being, I want to build on this model because I think it works really, really well for our residents. And the elephant in the room was always Wokingham not being part of that governing committee. I wasn't around when they left, and I'm going to crowbar in a Brexit reference because I know how much everybody loves them. And Councillor McKinnon got one in the other night at full council, so it's my turn now. Wokingham were always paying into that budget. They were always paying into that shared budget. And they didn't have a seat at the table and they didn't have a vote either. So when those policies and priorities were being decided, they didn't get a say. And it's a bit like those European countries, isn't it, that want access to European markets but aren't part of the European Union. It doesn't work particularly well. So I absolutely welcome this, and it's a good news story, and I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you.
And we were so close to wrapping the meeting, weren't we? When we decided we would use the Brexit analogy. Well done, Councillor Pemberton. Obviously, you're not interested in getting home by 9 o'clock. Councillor McCann, anything to add, sir?
No, I just heartily recommend that we accept the recommendations from 2.1 through to 2.7, Chair, to members.
Yeah, Councillor.
Yes, thank you.
No rush for you either, by the way.
I just wanted to give Councillor Pemberton a history of the European Union starting in 1957.
I told you.
And the Treaty of Rome, which formed... No, I'm only kidding. That's...
Right, so we've had a long meeting. I have one question, don't I, from Councillor Marsh. I can't do my rap, can I? So Councillor Gourley is taking it. What am I not doing?
Voted on.
I think that would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Yeah. Shall we vote on that? Thank you very much, members. Yeah. My battery's run down after 2.5 hours. Sorry. Okay, Councillor Marsh, you've got a question. Who's picking this one up?
It's for me, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Marsh, for the question. So the land off of Monk's Lane leading to Newbury Rugby Club is private and not part of the highway. So any requests for improved infrastructure should therefore be addressed to Newbury Rugby Club, and I'm happy to support an approach if required. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Just to say that a couple of weeks ago, no fewer than 1,500 people, mainly older residents such as myself, were vaccinated against flu by Falcon surgery at the rugby club. By no means all those people drove to the rugby club to be vaccinated. And the sight of dozens of people walking down the road with cars also trying to get through was not a pretty one. And it's not just a little local issue. A lot of people use that surgery. A lot of people go to that club. A lot of people visit the care home.
Supplementary, please.
Well, you were allowing it earlier. Leader,
I wasn't bumping up against my 9 o'clock for curfew earlier.
What is there anything else you can offer? What do you say? You'll say that if say a councillor, a ward member approached the rugby club and asked them to do something, you would support that?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to try and work, again, a bit like the public rights of way, work with private landowners to connect transport access, whether it's foot, road or whatever, where we possibly can. So yeah, I would absolutely support, asking the question and seeing what the opportunities are with the rugby club, and again, absolutely advocate linking it all up.
Good, thank you very much.
Okay, members, we've had, I think, a very, very good meeting. And the reason is we've gone into areas, we've been very courteous, and I think that's been very good. I think the members of the public, I thank them for their questions and how they responded to them. I hope Mr. Goatley is enjoying Turkey and not still on the meeting. He should be enjoying his holiday if it is a holiday. I don't watch this programme at 9 o'clock, but it's clear to me I'm not going to get a glass of wine tonight because everybody's going home. All right, we'll go then. You're lovely, thank you. Otherwise, I don't understand the programme. I'm sure it'll take me 4 series to get into it. But enjoy. Thank you again. And thank you to everybody for a good debate and a good meeting. Thank you. I haven't hit the gavel yet. Goodness me. Thank you very much, members.